This one is going to be hard to predict. We hop into game number 4. B manning the French in the north, but in the south on Highview, Capoch whipping out the Abbasids is going to teach us a few new lessons.
And as we discussed just before this game, the Abbasids have a great matchup over here against the French, but it also depends very heavily on what kind of map they do have to work with. Looking at the base of Capoch here, the first thing that one has to note is the position of those forests just spread perfectly around his base. This actually gives him a ton of safety, making it very, very easy to wall off this little segment of the map. The berries are rather safe to the left of his town center. Goldmine is not so spectacular, but I'm not going to lie, this is one of the better maps that Capoch has been able to use in this map, or in this set. And on the northern side, B's map, not great, not terrible. It's the type of map that you're okay with, but you're not going to be super, super happy about it either.
That was very diplomatic of you. Let me put it another way. As an ambassador for the French, this is an outrage. This guy has all these natural defenses, and I'm naked at the back. How is this fair? B, right now, is going to have to make sure he is the prime aggressor in this game because his position is a lot harder to defend. Now, the one good piece of news I will give him here, Lida, is that gold vein, compared to the gold veins we've seen on Highview, is somewhat defendable. So the French won't be screwed out of this game instantly like we sometimes see, where they just get rushed and they can't even get on their gold to begin with.
Looks like Capoch is going to split his villagers in between berries and some sheep as well. So he's not going exclusively on the berries. He's got currently 6 villas on it, but he also kept the villager on sheep, just now dropping the House of Wisdom right next to his town center. He's got a fairly exposed Goldmine over here, by far the hardest part of his base to defend. And as you said, for B, this is actually a fairly well defendable Goldmine, which is, as we have seen in the previous game, just vital for the French, because if you're playing the French, you are living and dying with those Feudal Age Knights. You need to make sure that you maintain control over that gold mine. And that forest sheltering it from the south makes it rather reasonable and easy to defend, because you can place a tower to the northern side of this gold mine if you really feel like there is pressure coming that way.
And I wouldn't be surprised if B kind of shifts towards the west side of his base, right? Like, although it's a long crossing, if you wall this enclosure, you're going to have double D, you're going to have the wood extensions. It's a lot of padding in terms of economical side of things. As
Look
the game
at
goes
B. Not a thing that we have seen very commonly. He's moving up with the villagers for a boar, and this is a very clever way of doing this. The boar gives you a very fast and very consistent food source for a long time. This is 2,000 food gathered really fast. I think it's even faster than the deer. And the other very clever thing that he did is that he aggroed the boar with the scout. Now this way, the boar was hitting the scout and the villagers killed the boar. The end result? A damaged scout, but the villagers untouched. And the scout will heal back up, so you didn't lose a single bit of HP on your villagers. This is still a little risky over here, but given the fact that you have a lot of stealth for us to work with, it might be more difficult for Capoch to spot these villagers. And the other thing to consider is that when you play against the Abbasids, you might assume that your opponent is going for 2 town centers. So B might be saying, okay, I don't think Capoch will contest the map control, so I'm free to take the board here.
Yeah, that's the highlightable point. If there was any civ and any map you were going to do this on, this is the game, right? Because Highview, like all these stealth forests, makes it harder to see. It's the fact that, as you said, you're up against the Abbasids, they're thinking secondary TC. They're not necessarily building some like horsemen early on to kind of rampage across the map. And also, because it is an Abbasid play, like something we've been seeing a lot more frequently with the Delhi and the Abbasids at the moment is they don't go for a second scout. So the likelihood that you kind of get revealed is a lot lower. It looks like he is going to be spotted in there now. And I like that Capoch, is he going to actually try to shift to side this? No, he's going to reveal himself. So now B knows that the goose is cooked. He knows he's been revealed. But if there was any map you were going to attempt this on, this is most definitely the one.
And sure thing, Capoch sees those hunters, but what exactly is he going to do against it? He doesn't have a single production building right now. Now, he hasn't started adding villagers towards stone, and this is something that B is aware of. So B should be aware of the fact that Capoch is probably going for some feudal age aggression, likely a stable for horsemen, but that's not necessarily a great matchup to start with against the knights of B. So you will have to start adding a barracks alongside that stable for Capoch and sort of go for that spearman-horseman combination against the knights and potentially archers of B.
I was kind of curious to see if B was going to go the Knights. It is going to be Knights. Sometimes we have seen, especially this player, he's done it a lot, is he goes to Horsemen instead when he's up against Spears. Just because you can't take good trades, so you might as well run around them a little bit quicker and not spend as much money on individual units. But he will go for the Knights. And I think the reason is because he wants to keep Capoch on the defensive, right? Like, he can't attack him in the center for being greedy on the ball if he has to keep dancing around his eco lines with these knights trying to ride in. So it is actually pretty big brain from B. Like, it's just padded protection on these greedy eco expansions.
And the thing that would really make this even better for B is dropping a tower in the middle, because the thing is that right now, 1 or 2 spearmen is enough to push these villagers away, and you see that Boar Carcass still has 1400 food on it. That's just so much food that you can work with, and you haven't even touched your berries, you haven't even touched your potential hunts, which, by the way, are also on the front. So you really want to protect this as long as possible, because this gives you a great source of food, and it also gives you a very nice staging ground. Having a tower here gives you vision into the stealth forests, and it also protects the villagers, makes it more difficult for a spearman to counterattack as well.
Oh, speaking of spearmen, one of them trying to deal with this knight, but knight will find his value and shift away quick enough. Capoch, he spread them out. He had the spears just covering his wood and his food line, and as a result, wasn't strong enough to punish the Royal Knight. And that's 2 Royal Knights, and it is going to be that outpost in the center. As soon as you said it, more or less, B just is like, oh, that's a pretty good idea. Thanks, Lidakor. Just drop it there, ensure that he can see whatever's coming if it should arrive. And at the same time, he doesn't now have to station knights nearby to counterattack, right? He can just be fully loose and not have to protect that eco expansion. Oh, root. Nice root. We'll get rid of the knight. Remember, folks, the way this works is if a spearman braces, first of all, they stun, and then they root. And the way a root is different from a stun is it just means the unit can't move. And that's why that knight looked like he'd bumped his head or something because he wasn't moving. It's because he was stuck on the spot due to the brace.
It also cancels the charge attack of the knight, and that's the most dangerous weapon for those French knights as well. So there was no villager killed on the berries, but we have to keep in mind that behind this one, B is also passively building up an eco lead because he's got the slightly faster training villagers. Blacksmith coming out, attack upgrade being free, the melee attack upgrade to be precise for B, makes it quite reasonable to drop a blacksmith early because you're just going to get that attack upgrade immediately, making it a little easier to kill those villagers with your few knights.
I mean, it's not even difficult for him as it is. He's just baiting Capoch. He's dangling him, right? You just saw that there. He shifts one knight in, baits the spearman out, and then goes to him the second. And the worrying part for me right now is Capoch. Like, look at his formation. He's chosen to go for spearman archers here. So the knights, as long as they can just dance around the spears, which they've been doing a decent job of until that moment there, it is going to lead to more hemorrhaging on the economy side of things for Capoch, and Capoch is still not going to a stone, and this is something that B is aware of because he just wrapped around the south side and discovered that still there is no mining camp here on the outcropping.
And Capoch lost his scout in the middle to the tower fire, making it next to impossible for him to spot any kind of unit movement from the opponent, and probably what's more concerning is that he won't be able to scout what units are coming out of B's base. Capoch is going very heavy on the archers, double archer ranges right now for him, but he doesn't know what the response is here from B. It looks like he's going to be able to get another villager on those lumberjacks, and he is just playing this French game perfectly. You always want to just poke and probe. It's like a bunch of annoying mosquitoes coming in left and right, and just taking away all your blood.
Absolutely. I mean, it's death by 1,000 cuts, right? It's death by 1,000 bees. That's what it is right there. You know, it's just swatting them away, but every once in a while they sting you again, and this is the allergic reaction over time. It is going to kill them in the long term, and it's something that Capoch needs to find a solution to. I mean, we mentioned the possibility of walling himself in, but unless he can buffer away these knights, he's always going to be paranoid about these villagers being sniped as they move out to drop the palisades. And you can just see that they keep wrapping in because he understands that when you play Abyssids, you want those berries more than anything else. And it means you're easily exploitable for a French player like this.
Capoch is trying to make a ramp push in the middle against that tower, but this will be scouted by B. B knows very well this is coming, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him now evacuating that position. He leaves 700 food over there, but he has taken the most of that boar. And for the investment that he made in the middle, a cheap French mill, important to note that this is a cheaper French mill than other civilizations, so you can really easily afford to drop it in the middle, and a tower, he has gotten a lot of food for that.
Mm-hmm. And now he knows he needs to react to the force coming in, a force of 8 archers and 5 spearmen, but he was already prepping for this. We know he dropped the double archer range, and he's starting to stack them up. And I love what he done with the outpost here. So many French players don't do this. We talked about this earlier in the series, right? They react. They build an outpost when they're threatened, but B is presenting clear benefits to preemptively prepping outposts in these positions, because it means there's no easy way in for Capoch, and instead, he can just be blown to oblivion as soon as he reveals himself on this wood line.
And he might not even see the tower until the last moment over here. Indeed, he runs into the tower fire. Gotta love the way that B is focusing on the spears as well, because the moment the spears are cleaned up, you will have a window with those knights to try and push this one. And you already have a blacksmith for B. He's got the melee attack upgrade, he's got the range defense upgrade as well. Whereas on the other side, there is no blacksmith for Capoch, so he's lacking blacksmith upgrades on his army. The only thing that's really going for Capoch right now is that his numbers are quite decent. 25 army against only 13, but every moment he delays this push, that gives a larger and larger window for B to just mass up the archers and hold off this assault.
And that's why he goes to the second ram. I think Capoch understands the state of this game now. He's been sniped too much. He didn't go for the second TC. He doesn't want to fall back now on a map like this against France, so he has to get value now. This really is your kind of all-in, classic Abbasid style. Not Dark Age, mind you, but still very early on in the game deciding that it's do or die. We'll see if he's going to die here. Moves in onto the outpost. Ram already striking away with a huge amount of damage. And while that's happening, B instead cuts off reinforcements. He moves in with the knights, and he might look to raid directly into the villager lines of Capoch.
That's a great move, to be honest. Just think about it. It's not going to be very easy for Capoch to take down all these buildings over here with so many archers around. Villagers could be pulled against the rams as well. And the knights couldn't really fight this one. There's so many spears over here to deal with them. So the best thing that you might be able to do, indeed, is just to cut off reinforcements or just kill 15-20 villagers from the opponent. This is still getting a little concerning here for B, though. He's about to lose one of those archer ranges, and the second one is about to go down as well.
And here we go. The B, he's going to move out with the villagers. The villagers have textiles as well, so it's hard for Capoch to turn around. Ram's going to be heavy hit, and that is a flood of villagers as your front lines. They get their fists and their knives out, and they stick it to Capoch's vanguard. And it's mainly just archers here, so he can't really stand and fight. And he's being picked apart by the French archery units in the meantime. So this is going to be a heavy hit. Capoch not really getting good trades at all. He'll finally turn around and return a little bit of fire towards the villagers, but damage done. Ram's forced away, spearmen dead, archers all but gone. He'll try to garrison inside the ram, but there's no denying the fact that this is a heavy hit into Capoch. It's not only will he lose the military force, but the heavy investment into the rams as well.
And all those villagers being pulled, it's just really a matter of numbers out here. 40 villagers being pulled by B. Really, it's the bees swarming that one big hornet out there, and ultimately just absolutely annihilating it. And with that, Capoch's army is just gone from the battlefield, and you can once again start regrouping, start raiding Capoch again. And part of the reason why this worked so well for B is that he was able to carve out a villager lead already, so he can afford to lose 3 or 4 villagers and basically trade them off to the opponent's army, because that's exactly what happened. He still maintains a 7 villagers lead with basically identical army numbers for the 2 players.
And it's because of textiles. You know, this is still underrated by quite a lot of players, but something we have to highlight in this series multiple times now. B respects it. He gets it. Meanwhile, look at Capoch's side of things. How many villages did he lose to these knights? It's so easy for knights to kill a 50 HP unit. Imagine how much more difficult it would have been for B to find that value early on if Capoch had gone for textiles, because he definitely lost enough villagers to have justified its research.
Capoch is running out of his starting berries, so he has to move all the way to the front for the new patch of berries. This was spotted by B, however, and you see he's sending the knights all the way around to the left. This will probably go unspotted by Capoch. Remember, he lost his scout previously. So if you look at Capoch's line of sight and vision right now, he's just sort of creeping up in those stealth forests, but he's in the dark. He has no idea what's coming from the left side, and he has no idea what kind of trap he's running into, potentially.
He sees the knights now. Trap is sprung. He'll try to retreat away. 1 or 2 of these villagers are going to be left behind to die, though, as the lances touch tips with the back of the heads of those retreating villagers. In the meantime, there are going to be some archer shots coming to French villagers, but they're able to move away easily with the textiles upgrade. 1 or 2 of them are going to fall, but now B, with his own archers, can respond here. And all the while, he'll dive deeper because, look, Capoch, he's not microing it. B, he's found all the villagers just AFK. And so many of them are dying here. And Capoch is not renewing his assault. He doesn't find value in B's base. Meanwhile, B continues to carve up and extend that villager count lead he already had.
B has defensive forces back at home, whereas Capoch has nothing, and that's the difference. B is able to slow down the aggression over here, whereas Capoch is scrambling to get some spears out, get some archers out, and ultimately the knights from B are getting cleaned up, but the losses are just so gigantic from Capoch. He has lost so many vills here. He borderline needs to get at least 5-10 villager kills over here to have any chance at coming back into this one.
The villagers, I don't know if Capoch thought they were going to run after him for a second there. He looked paranoid about it. He backs up again. because the spearmen were about to become exposed. The archer count is now in favor of B, and Capoch is once again going to find himself pushed back towards his base. This time he won't lose the main battalion, but he's once again just not finding that value, and that eco lead is now up to 14 for B.
And that's a massive eco lead we're talking about, especially if you consider the fact that B still has some knights around the base of Capoch. So the moment Capoch stops this attack, B once again will just continue with that harassment using the knights, and that villager difference will just increase more and more in the favor of B. Neither of the players have banked up a ton of resources here, so it looks like we're going to have a very long feudal age here as B starts moving towards those berries. Capoch still has one patch of berries to work with, and he hasn't touched his hunt yet. But as you see, there is going to be some knights moving in from B to pick off a couple of farmers, and that's once again just further annoyance for Capoch, making his life even more difficult.
And B got some valuable information here, because he already saw the wood line was draining up. He knows his opponent is going to be kind of torn when he has to shift to a new wood line, because he's transitioning to farmlands, right, while still pushing double archers. So this is actually going to hurt Capoch. It's going to make it a lot easier for these raids to succeed for B. And also B, he's ramping up the speedy moves with. Notice he switched over to horsemen, understanding that right now, knights aren't needed. They're not winning the fights. The archer count alone is doing it. And the horseman could just be that buffer to ensure he keeps that archer lead.
And keep in mind, he's running low on gold. That gold vein only has 1,000 gold left in it, and he's depleting that quite rapidly. And the other gold mines are not so safe. There is one on the north that could be taken, but I think he's switching it to horsemen partially because he wants to make sure that he doesn't run out of gold and he can't make more cavalry.
This is really bad. This is really bad for Capoch. This fight is not good. He invested in another ram, and he's being pushed back. The archer count is healthy for B. The spearmen are holding for the moment, but they won't hold for long when they're outmassed now. Even the knights and the horsemen move in, understanding that this is still a good trade. And afterwards, that is going to be another ram now failing for Capoch. That's up to 1,200 wood just wasted and gaining next to no value at all.
And this is the best fight that Capoch can really take. He just needs to force the issue at this point. But there are just so many archers over here for B, picking off the spears, picking off the archers. And as you pointed out, investing into that battering ram means that Capoch just had 300 wood being used up to build that ram that was never completed, so it wasn't even able to absorb any kind of arrow fire or anything like that. And B just used all his resources at making army, knights, archers, and he's able to swarm his opponent. Capoch's army has collapsed, he's down to 12 army, and now it is all B in cruise control mode.
Exactly, because B is, yeah, it's a similar military count, but one side has the more expensive unit, right? Like that is not what you want to be seeing. If you're going for cheap bang for buck, you should at least have more. You should have the Zerg factor in your side. And we mentioned this was coming. With the wood line now just being depleted, look what Capoch has to do. He's condensing his economy on the western flank, where he has limited garrison points. And this means if he is raided here and his troops are ever out of position, it's going to be the biggest hit to his economy count we've seen all game.
And speaking of the economy count, we're talking about 60 villagers for B, 44 for Capoch. So now we're talking about a solid 33% advantage for B. And he also starts to grab the map control, and he's about to leverage that. Look at that, villagers being sent to the right side. They might be going for that boar on the far right that's hidden in the stealth forest.
Ooh.
Or, yeah, they have to be going towards that, and that will be a great way to hide villagers, and that's going to be impossible for Capoch to find.
Well, he can't go and look for it, right? Because he's running a static army. So if he runs all the way out there, even if he sniped all 8 of these villagers, B's going to just thumbs up. He's going to greenlight an assault straight into your base because your army's away from home. So Capoch just finds himself kind of bent over a barrel and being asked the question, do you want to sacrifice the arm or the leg, sir? Because he's going to have to sacrifice something.
And the thing is that why would Capoch ever even try to check out the right side over here? He's got, as you said, a very slow-moving army, and he's got no scout to work with. Which means that he would never send his army to the far right to check for villagers, because, as he said, he has to defend his base. Speaking of which, he's about to lose another villager here on that farming eco. And as he said, he's mustering his forces in the middle, archers and knights increasing in numbers, and behind that, B's leveraging that map control as well.
And it has to be highlighted that Capoch, he was able to deny at least 1 or 2 of those rams, so he deleted them before they got attacked. So he did get the wood back, and that's why he's got so many farms down so quickly. But the way he's spreading out, when he's got knights knocking at his door, he's exposed, and we see exactly that. Right in, snipes out 1 or 2 of the villagers, forces the rest off the gold line. The outpost a little bit too tanky for this army to deal with, but that outpost crawl continues. And I don't know about you, Lidakor, but I'm getting flashbacks here. I'm pretty sure we've seen this move from B before.
he needs to move in because Capoch is on the way to Castle Age, and that could be a massive swing in this battle. If Capoch gets to Castle and starts getting Lancers out or Men-at-Arms, suddenly things could get ugly for B. So this is almost getting like a now or never situation for B, because B is not very close to Castle Age himself, so he needs to go soon.
He's going in. He's using small contingents of knights. Because this is the detail that matters. Even if Capoch cracks Castle Age, he needs units gathering resources. So if you just keep following him with these strike forces and striking down 1 villager, 2 villager, 3 villagers as you go, you can just see the heavy hits now be up to the pristine 69, and Capoch still down at 43 eco. Even with a tech up lead, he might be in trouble here.
And he's not noticing the gold miners being killed on the right side because there is so many things happening. B is controlling 4 groups of knights over here, swooping in from the north, the south, the east, the west. And Capoch isn't able to react to everything that's happening at the same time.
It is. I mean, it's phenomenal by B. Death by 1,000 Sting, just riding deeper all around the place. The anarchy, the chaos factor turned up to 11, and Capoch clueless to what's happening here. He'll get his tech up, but at what cost? Only archers to defend him, so many knights left, and the butchering continues. The Abbasid civilization is quickly falling into rubble here. There's no way he can build up an army at this rate. The knights have found the woodline. They're going to charge in there. Capoch now down below 30 eco. B close to tripling up his opponent on the economy front, and he knows it's over. He can't field an army. He cannot replace it, and it will be B now going up within reach of winning this series 3-1.
Great game here from B. He really has showcased how you have to use the French in this civilization matchup. You just have to keep poking and probing with those knights. Every once in a while, dive in, kill 1 villager, disengage. And this is a very difficult thing to do. You have to control 3, 4, 5 groups of units over here, while also building up your eco behind that. And as I said, in many ways, he did things that you don't often see from French players. The preemptive tower on the gold mine, or moving out for the boar as well. He realized that Capoch isn't going to attack him early, so he can leverage that boar advantage, use the cheap French mill to get a lot of it. And the moment he had the map control, he moved to the far right, picked up the other boar.